The vast chamber of the Galactic Council headquarters fell silent as the human delegation entered. Representative Diane Morgan walked forward, her steps echoing across the polished stone floor. Above her loomed curved tiers filled with over 300 alien species, their eyes sensory stalks, and visual processors all focused on the 5 humans who dared to stand before them. Diane swallowed hard but kept her posture straight. This was humanity's first official appearance before the Council after their discovery of faster-than-light travel only 8 years earlier. The chamber itself was intimidating, a massive dome carved from a single asteroid, with walls that shimmered with bioluminescent patterns that seemed to watch their every movement. Humans of Earth boomed a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The translator implant behind Diane's ear converted the complex harmonics into English. You stand before the Galactic Council of the 7 sectors, governing body of 3,412 worlds. I am High Arbiter Cole, presiding over this session. The central platform illuminated, revealing a tall, willowy being with metallic skin that reflected the chamber's light in prismatic patterns. 4 arms were folded across its chest in what Diane recognized from briefings as a gesture of authority. You have been summoned to address serious allegations, Cole continued. The Bravari Confederation claims your species has illegally settled on world GX-742, a protected development zone under Treaty of Mizar regulations. Murmurs rippled through the chamber as a hulking reptilian delegate rose from the lower tier. Its scales flashed warning colors of orange and red. These primitives, the Bravari representative hissed, landed on our research world without permission and refused to leave despite multiple warnings. They claim to have found evidence of prior habitation and assert rights that do not exist under Council law. Diane stepped forward, activating the hovering translation orb they'd been provided. Honorable Arbiter, esteemed Council members. I am Representative Diane Morgan of Earth's Interstellar Diplomatic Corps. We acknowledge the Council's authority and wisdom in these matters. She gestured, and her assistant Alan Reed activated a holographic display showing a star map. However, the settlement in question was established following all known protocols for unclaimed worlds. Our survey ships detected no beacons, markers, or signals indicating Bravari claim or presence. The Bravari delegate slammed a clawed hand down. Lies, the world has been ours for 3 centuries. Arbiter Cole raised a hand for silence. The accusation is serious. Violation of territorial claims carries severe penalties for emerging species, including quarantine restrictions. Diane nodded calmly. We understand the gravity of these charges. That is why we've brought evidence that will surprise this Council. She nodded to her team's data analyst, Penny West, who stepped forward with a small metallic cube. With the Council's permission, we would like to present historical records recovered from the very site in question. A murmur of interest swept through the chamber. Arbiter Cole gestured, and the cube floated upward to the central platform. After a moment of inspection, the Arbiter inserted it into a receptacle on the Council table. The chamber darkened, and 3-dimensional images appeared in the air. Ruins of an ancient settlement, clearly not of human or Bravari origin. Dating analyses appeared alongside the images, indicating an age of over 20,000 years. The settlement on GX-742 was established after our archaeologists discovered these ruins, Diane explained. Under the Rights of Discovery Accord, Section 12, Paragraph 4, any species finding evidence of ancient precursor civilizations may establish research outposts without prior claim conflicts. The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. The Bravari delegate's scales shifted to pale yellow, a sign of distress or surprise. Arbiter Cole leaned forward. These ruins bear markings consistent with the Third Wave civilization. How did humans, new to interstellar travel, recognize their significance? Diane smiled slightly. That is the second matter we wish to address today. Our world has evidence of ancient visitation, legends, artifacts, and genetic markers that match those found on GX-742. She paused, letting the revelation sink in. We believe Earth was once an outpost of this same civilization, abandoned during the Great Collapse. The Bravari delegate hissed in disbelief. Impossible. No precursor sites exist in that sector. Because they were never properly surveyed, came a new voice. From the highest tier, a being shrouded in luminescent robes stood. The chamber immediately fell silent. Diane recognized the insignia, a member of the archivists. the oldest known species in the galaxy and keepers of ancient knowledge. The human delegation speaks truthfully, the archivist said, voice soft, yet carrying to every corner. Our records indicate a third-wave colony was indeed established in that sector, though its fate was unknown after the collapse. If humans have found evidence linking their world to this history, it is significant to all Council species. Diane nodded respectfully to the archivist. We come not only to defend our settlement but to offer cooperation. The ruins contain technology we cannot decipher. We propose a joint research initiative under Council supervision, with all findings shared openly. The strategic offer hung in the air. Diane watched as Council members exchanged glances and silent communications. Her team had gambled everything on this approach, not demanding rights as victims of false accusations, but offering partnership that would benefit the galactic community. A reasonable proposal, Arbiter Cole finally said, but the Bravari claims must still be addressed. The reptilian delegate, now defensive, stepped forward again. We maintain our prior claim to GX-742. Human presence violates our territorial rights, precursor ruins or not. Diane took a calculated risk. May I ask when the Bravari last visited this world they claim to own? The delegate hesitated. Our monitoring stations observe from orbit. Surface conditions are hostile to our biology, so you've never actually set foot on the planet you claim to possess. Diane pressed gently. Physical presence is not required for territorial claim under Section 89 of the Territorial Expansion Accords, the Bravari countered. Arbiter Cole interjected. True, but the same accords require regular substantive use or presence to maintain such claims. Our records show no Bravari activity in that system for 76 years. The chamber grew tense as the Bravari delegate's scales flickered between colors. Diane maintained her composed expression, but inside she felt a surge of hope. Their intelligence on Bravari claim protocols had been accurate. The Council will recess to consider both claims, Arbiter Cole announced. Representatives will remain available for further questioning. As the Council members began to disperse for deliberation, several approached the human delegation with curious expressions and cautious greetings. Diane exchanged glances with her team. Their first appearance before the Galactic Council had created exactly the stir they'd hoped for. Now they needed to navigate the complex politics that would follow. What none of the Council members yet realized was that the ruins on GX-742 contained only a fraction of what humanity had discovered. The real revelations would come later, when Earth was ready to show its full hand in the galactic game. The private chamber assigned to the human delegation was modest by Council standards, but impressive to human eyes. Walls of some crystalline material that shifted colors with changing light, furniture that seemed to grow from the floor itself, and a viewport revealing the stunning vista of the Council station orbiting a ringed gas giant. Diane paced while the rest of her team sat around a hovering table display. Security scans had confirmed the room was free of surveillance devices, at least any their technology could detect. They're taking longer than expected, Alan said, checking the time display on his wrist unit. 4 hours in deliberation. That's good for us, Penny replied, adjusting the data flowing across her tablet. It means they're seriously considering our proposal. The fifth member of their team, Marcus Bell, their xenobiologist, looked up from his notes. The archivist's intervention was unexpected. Our intelligence suggested they rarely speak in open council. Diane nodded. It changes everything. We prepared for opposition, not for potential allies among the elder species. She stopped pacing and faced her team. But we need to prepare for the next phase. The Council might grant us joint research rights, but they'll want oversight. That means Council representatives on Earth. The room fell silent as they considered the implications. Earth governments had agreed to this diplomatic mission, but remained divided on allowing alien presence on their world. The ruins discovered in the Arctic 3 years ago had been kept secret from the general public, known only to a select group of scientists and officials. We could limit their access, suggested Alan. The Antarctic site only, with restricted movement. Marcus shook his head. The archivists will sense deception. If we want their support, we need transparency. Before they could discuss further, a chime sounded and the door membrane rippled. A council attendant entered, a small multi-limbed being with reflective eyes. The council reconvenes. Your presence is requested. it announced in perfectly accented English without any translation device. The human delegation exchanged glances before following the attendant back to the main chamber. The tiers were now filled with more species than before. Word had spread about the humans' claim regarding precursor connections. High Arbiter Cole stood at the central platform, flanked by representatives from 7 major powers, including the agitated Bravari delegate. The archivist who had spoken earlier was now positioned closer to the central dais, a significant political statement. The Council has reached a preliminary determination, Cole announced as the humans took their positions. The Bravari claimed to GX742 is deemed lapsed under Article 17 of the Territorial Accords due to insufficient presence and utilization. The Bravari delegates' scales rippled with barely controlled anger, but he remained silent. Regarding the human settlement, Cole continued, and we recognize the legitimacy of research operations under the precursor discovery protocols. However, permanent colonization rights are suspended pending full archaeological assessment. Diane stepped forward. The Earth government accepts these terms and welcomes Council cooperation in studying the ruins. Cole raised a metallic hand. There is more. The Archivist Consortium has requested direct involvement in this matter, citing potential connections to the third wave diaspora. They propose a joint mission to both GX742 and Earth to verify your claims of precursor presence. This was more than they had hoped for. Direct engagement with the mysterious archivists whose knowledge of ancient history was unparalleled. Diane controlled her expression, maintaining diplomatic neutrality. Earth would be honored by such a visit, she replied carefully. Our scientists are eager to share findings and learn from archivist expertise. A new figure moved forward on the Council platform, not the same archivist who had spoken earlier, but a taller being whose robe seemed to absorb rather than reflect light. When it spoke, the voice was deeper, with harmonic overtones that made Diane's translator implant buzz slightly. We have observed your species from afar since your first radio transmissions, the senior archivist said. Your rapid technological development has been notable, but your claims of precursor heritage are extraordinary and require verification. The archivist gestured, and a holographic display appeared, showing Earth but with unusual energy patterns highlighted across certain regions. Patterns that matched precisely the classified maps of anomalous readings. Earth scientists had been studying for decades. Diane heard Penny gasp softly beside her. Those energy signatures were supposed to be undetectable by current technology. The implications were clear. The archivists had been monitoring Earth far more closely than anyone had suspected. These energy patterns are consistent with dormant precursor technology, the archivist continued. If activated, they would constitute a significant power shift in this galactic sector. The council chamber erupted in concerned murmurs. Diane realized the situation had suddenly become far more complex. What had been a territorial dispute was transforming into something with much higher stakes. Arbiter Cole raised all 4 hands for silence. Given these revelations, the council proposes the following resolution. A joint research delegation, comprising representatives from the Archivist Consortium, the Galactic Council Oversight Committee, and human scientists will conduct investigations at both locations. All findings will be reported directly to the full council. During this period, human interstellar travel will be limited to approved routes only. It was effectively a monitored probation, not unexpected for a new species, but still restrictive. Diane weighed their options quickly. Refusing would trigger suspicion. Accepting meant allowing powerful aliens access to Earth's most closely guarded secret. May I confer with my team? She requested. Cole nodded, and the humans gathered in a tight circle. They know more than they should, whispered Alan. The Arctic energy pattern is exactly what Dr. Rivera's team mapped last year. Marcus looked troubled. If they've been watching us that closely, they might know about the activation attempts. Diane made her decision. We proceed as planned. Accept their terms but request mutual exchange. Our scientists should have access to council archives regarding the third wave civilization. They broke from their huddle, and Diane addressed the council. We accept these terms with one additional request. As this is a collaborative effort, we ask for access to council historical records regarding the precursors to better understand what we've discovered. The senior archivist seemed to study her for a long moment, before inclining its head slightly. Reasonable. Limited access will be granted to your research team. Cole nodded in agreement. Then it is settled. The joint delegation will depart for Earth in 7 rotations. Until then, the human representatives will be granted guest status on the council station to prepare for the mission. As the session adjourned, various delegates approached the humans with questions and offers of alliance. Diane maintained diplomatic responses while observing which species seemed most interested in Earth's newfound significance. Later, alone in her quarters, Diane activated a small device that created a brief subspace pulse, undetectable by known council technology. The coded message was simple: Phase 1 complete. Archivists engaged. Prepare Arctic site for visitors. What the council didn't know was that the ruins humanity had discovered contained more than just historical artifacts. The technology they'd begun to reactivate had already changed Earth's defensive capabilities in ways that would shock the galactic community. The coming inspection would require careful management to reveal enough to gain allies without exposing Earth's full advancements. Diane looked out at the stars visible through her viewport. Humanity had stepped onto the galactic stage earlier than planned, but there was no turning back now. The ancient connection between Earth and the vanished precursors would either secure humanity's place among the stars, or make them a target for those who feared such power in the hands of newcomers. The real challenge was just beginning. The Council ship Eternal Harmony entered Earth orbit 7 days later, its crystalline hull shimmering against the backdrop of space. From the observation deck of Orbital Platform Alpha, Diane watched alongside Earth Secretary General Olivia Foster and Admiral Jack Hayes as the massive vessel positioned itself precisely at the coordinates they had provided. Bigger than expected, Admiral Hayes muttered, his weathered face revealing concern despite his diplomatic smile. That ship could hold thousands. The delegation numbers 27, Diane reassured him. The vessel size is a statement of prestige, not force. Secretary General Foster nodded tightly. Let's hope so. The Security Council is still divided on this approach. Half believe we're moving too quickly, exposing ourselves to potential threats. And the other half? Diane asked. They think we're not moving quickly enough to leverage what we found, Foster replied. The Arctic technology could revolutionize our defense systems, energy production, medicine, if we can fully activate it. A communications officer approached. Incoming transmission from the Council vessel. They're ready to send down their delegation. Diane straightened her uniform. Remember, no military presence at the landing site. The archivists are particularly sensitive to perceived threats. The landing occurred at the newly constructed diplomatic facility outside Geneva, a circular platform, surrounded by gardens designed to accommodate various environmental needs of alien visitors. Security was present but discreet, hidden in buildings surrounding the open space. The transport vessel that descended from the Eternal Harmony was surprisingly elegant, a teardrop-shaped craft that made almost no sound as it touched down. Its surface rippled once before a doorway formed in its side. First to emerge was Arbiter Cole, forearms held in a formal greeting posture. Behind him came 3 archivists, their robes now seen in daylight revealing intricate patterns that seemed to shift and move independently. 7 other species followed, representatives from major council powers and scientific specialists. Last to exit was a being Diane hadn't seen before, tall and graceful with silver-blue skin and eyes that contained swirling galaxies of color. The council records identified this species as Luminari, ancient allies of the archivists and rarely seen at diplomatic functions. Secretary General Foster stepped forward. On behalf of Earth and all humanity, I welcome you to our world. We are honored by your presence and look forward to sharing knowledge that will benefit all our peoples. The formal greetings continued for several minutes, each species following their cultural protocols. When completed, Arbiter Cole addressed the human delegation. We appreciate your hospitality. The Council has authorized a preliminary assessment period of 14 Earth days. We request access to the Discovery site as soon as possible. Foster nodded. Transport to the Arctic facility is prepared. However, we've arranged a brief cultural orientation first, to help you understand the context of our civilization. The Luminari spoke for the first time, its voice like liquid crystal. While cultural exchange has value, our primary purpose is scientific assessment. Delays serve neither of our interests. Diane noticed the subtle tension. The council representatives had expected immediate access to the precursor site. The planned orientation was partly diplomatic and partly a necessary delay, while final preparations were completed at the Arctic facility. Not a delay, Diane interjected smoothly. Rather important context. The ruins interact with human biological signatures in ways we don't fully understand. Knowledge of our physiology and evolutionary history may be critical to your assessment. The senior archivist tilted its head slightly. A valid observation. We accept the orientation. Over the next 2 days, the alien delegation was given carefully curated tours of human cultural sites, scientific facilities, and historical landmarks. They showed particular interest in ancient structures like the pyramids and Stonehenge, taking extensive readings and comparing notes in their own languages. On the 3rd day, as the delegation prepared to board transport planes to the Arctic, Diane received an urgent message from the facility. She excused herself and stepped away to take the call. "Dr. Rivera, what's happened?" she asked quietly. The scientist's voice was tense. "The central artifact activated on its own 6 hours ago. Energy readings are off the charts and we're detecting what might be some kind of transmission." Diane felt a chill. "Directed where?" "That's the concerning part. It appears to be aimed at the council ship in orbit." She ended the call and rejoined the delegation, maintaining her composed expression while sending a coded alert to Admiral Hayes. If the artifact was communicating with the council ship, either something had triggered it, or the visitors had brought technology capable of activating precursor systems remotely. As their transport approached the Arctic, the perpetual darkness of polar winter surrounded them. The research facility below appeared as a cluster of lights embedded in ice, surrounded by a perimeter of energy barriers disguised as weather protection. The senior archivist moved to sit beside Diane. "Your world has a savage beauty," it commented. "Few life-bearing planets maintain such extreme environmental variations. We've adapted to live in almost every environment Earth offers," Diane replied. "Humans are resilient." "Yes," the archivist said softly. That trait was valued by the Shapers. Diane controlled her reaction carefully. "The Shapers?" "What you call precursors. Their true name translates roughly to those who shape life. They were experimental in their approach to evolution." Before Diane could ask more, the pilot announced their descent. The facility below had grown from a small research outpost to a substantial installation over the past year, with specialized laboratories and living quarters built into the ice itself. Dr. Elena Rivera met them at the entrance airlocks, a brilliant archaeologist who had led the initial excavation. Her dark eyes showed concern despite her professional smile. "Welcome to Arcturus Base," she greeted the delegation. "We've prepared specialized environmental settings for each species based on council biological data." The tour proceeded, through research labs and analysis centers until they reached the central chamber, a vast cavern beneath the ice where the ruins had been discovered. The architecture was unlike anything on Earth, flowing structures of an unknown, metal that seemed to absorb and emit light simultaneously. At the center stood the artifact that had activated, a 20-meter spire of intertwining metallic strands, surrounding a core of pulsing blue-white energy. The reaction from the alien delegation was immediate. The archivist moved forward with obvious recognition, while several council scientists activated scanning devices. The luminary representative stood motionless, its galaxy eyes fixed on the spire. "This is unexpected," Arbiter Cole said carefully. "A functioning nexus point has not been discovered in over 12,000 years. Dr. Rivera glanced at Diane. Neither of them had heard this term before. "Nexus point?" Rivera asked. The senior archivist gestured toward the spire. "A communication and transportation node for the Shaper network. They established these on worlds with species they were cultivating." "Cultivating?" Secretary Foster asked, her diplomatic tone barely masking concern. The luminary stepped forward. "The Shapers were creators and manipulators of life throughout this galaxy. They selected species with potential and guided their evolution toward specific goals." "What goals?" Diane asked directly. The senior archivist and the luminary exchanged glances before the archivist answered. Each species was designed to fulfill different functions within their galactic civilization. Some for labor, some for warfare, some for scientific advancement. The Shapers themselves eventually transcended physical form entirely. Admiral Hayes, who had remained silent until now, spoke up. "Are you suggesting humans were engineered by these Shapers?" "All evidence indicates so," the Luminari replied. "But something unusual occurred here. The Shapers abandoned this sector during the collapse, leaving their experiments uncompleted. Your species continued evolving without guidance, taking an unexpected path." Dr. Rivera approached the control panels near the spire. "The artifact activated approximately 7 hours ago. We detected energy patterns similar to a communication signal." The senior archivist moved swiftly toward her. "Show me these readings immediately." As Rivera displayed the data, Diane noticed the archivists communicating silently among themselves, their robes shifting colors and patterns that seemed to convey meaning. Finally, the senior archivist turned to address them all. "This changes our assessment significantly. The nexus point hasn't merely activated, it has reconnected to the network. Somewhere a response has been triggered." "What kind of response?" Secretary Foster demanded. The Luminary's galaxy eyes seemed to darken. "That depends on what the Shapers programmed into your genetic line. Each species was given specific activation protocols within their DNA. When enough individuals reached evolutionary maturity, the nexus would reconnect." And then, Admiral Hayes pressed. The archivist's voice became solemn. "Then the Shapers, or whatever they have become, would return to evaluate their creation." A heavy silence fell over the chamber as humans and aliens alike contemplated the implications. Humanity had not just discovered its past, it had potentially signaled to ancient creators that their experiment was ready for the emergency protocols activated throughout Arcturus base as systems detected an approaching anomaly. Alarms pulsed with soft blue light rather than harsh sound, a design choice to avoid damaging sensitive alien auditory systems. "Something's coming through," Dr. Rivera announced, her fingers flying across the control interface, spatial distortion forming directly above the nexus point. The archivists had positioned themselves in a triangular formation around the spire, their robes now pulsing with the same energy signature as the artifact. The Luminary stood apart, its silver-blue skin emitting a subtle glow. "Clear the chamber," Admiral Hayes ordered, but the senior archivist raised a hand. "No. Any disruption could destabilize the connection. We must observe what emerges." Secretary Foster moved closer to Diane. "Did we anticipate this? Is this part of the plan?" Diane shook her head slightly. "We expected activation to take weeks, not hours. Something accelerated the process." Above the spire, space itself seemed to fold inward, creating a swirling vortex of energy that expanded to form a perfect sphere approximately 3 meters in diameter. The air crackled with ozone and something else, a scent like ancient stone exposed to sunlight after millennia in darkness. "Receiving transmission," one of the council scientists announced, their tentacled appendages manipulating a floating device. "Unknown format, but it appears to be a data packet of some kind." The Luminary stepped forward. "Direct it to my systems. I can translate Shaper protocols." Before anyone could respond, the sphere of energy pulsed once and then stabilized into a translucent window, showing what appeared to be another location. A vast chamber of the same flowing architecture as the ruins, but intact and illuminated by soft ambient light. A figure appeared on the other side, humanoid but taller, with elongated limbs and skin that seemed to shift between transparency and a pale blue luminescence. Its features were almost human but refined to an impossible perfection, with eyes that contained the same galaxy-like depth as the Luminaries. "Greetings, children of Earth," it spoke, its voice somehow bypassing the air to resonate directly in their minds. "I am Sentinel Eterna, guardian of the Shaper legacy. Your evolutionary signature has reached the designated threshold." Admiral Hayes stepped forward, positioning himself slightly in front of the civilian leaders. "I am Admiral Hayes of Earth's Defense Forces. Who exactly are you? And what is your interest in our world?" The figure seemed to study him with interest. "Direct. Protective. These are desired traits." Its gaze swept across the assembled humans and aliens. "I observe council representatives are present. Unexpected but not problematic." The senior archivist bowed slightly. "Honored Sentinel, the Archivist Consortium maintains the knowledge of the Shapers as entrusted to us before the collapse. Partial knowledge only, the Sentinel corrected, as was necessary during the isolation phase. The humans have reactivated their nexus through natural progression, not external influence. This validates the experiment. Diane felt a chill at the casual way this being discussed humanity as an experiment. What experiment exactly? What were your people trying to accomplish with humans? The Sentinel's attention focused on her with an intensity that made Diane feel as though her very DNA was being scanned. Interesting. You bear the command sequence in your genetic pattern. This explains the accelerated activation. Dr. Rivera moved to stand beside Diane. What command sequence? Instead of answering directly, the Sentinel gestured, and a holographic display appeared in the air before them, showing a DNA strand with certain sections highlighted. Your species was designed with specific genetic triggers, the Sentinel explained. When enough individuals evolved to develop these sequences naturally, the nexus would reactivate. This woman carries a complete command sequence, rare even during peak Shaper civilization. The Luminari stepped closer to the display, its galaxy eyes widening. This is a primary controller pattern. Humans were not merely an experiment. They were being developed as successors. Murmurs spread through the council representatives. Arbiter Call moved forward. Sentinel Eterna, the Galactic Council requests clarification. Are you stating that humans were designed to inherit Shaper authority? The Sentinel's expression remained serene. Not all humans. Only those with the full genetic pattern. But yes, the species was designed with that potential, along with other specialized adaptations for survival and development. Secretary Foster found her voice. What does this mean for Earth now? What happens next? The reconnection process has begun, the Sentinel replied. Over the next planetary cycle, all dormant Shaper technology on your world will reactivate. Your species will gain access to knowledge and capabilities previously withheld until your development reached appropriate levels. Admiral Hayes frowned. And what do you expect in return for this gift? The Sentinel's expression shifted slightly, something almost like amusement. Perspective. The Shapers did not create life forms to serve them, Admiral. They created potential successors because they knew their own civilization was reaching its natural end. We are not your masters. We are your predecessors. The implications stunned everyone present. This wasn't an alien power seeking to control Earth. It was an ancient civilization passing on its legacy. The senior archivist broke the silence. Sentinel, the Council has maintained galactic order for thousands of years since the Shaper departure. How does humanity's new status affect existing power structures? The Council was always meant to be temporary, the Sentinel stated simply. A caretaker organization until the next phase of galactic evolution emerged naturally. That emergence has now begun. Arbiter Cole's forearm shifted in what Diane recognized as a gesture of distress. This will cause significant disruption across Council space. Many species will resist changes to the established order. As is their right, the Sentinel acknowledged. Evolution includes competition and adaptation. The humans must prove their worthiness through their actions, not merely their genetics. Diane stepped forward again. You mentioned others with this genetic pattern. How many humans carry it? Approximately 1 in 10,000 carries partial sequences, the Sentinel answered. Those with complete patterns like yours number fewer than 300 worldwide. You will find each other as the awakening progresses. Dr. Rivera was still studying the DNA display. These highlighted sections, they correlate with what we've been calling junk DNA, non-coding regions we thought were evolutionary leftovers. Not junk, the Sentinel corrected. Dormant programming waiting for activation. Your species has been gradually self-actualizing these sequences through natural selection over thousands of years. Secretary Foster looked concerned. Will this activation harm people? Change them physically? No physical transformation occurs, the Sentinel assured her. Only neural reconfiguration allowing access to Shaper knowledge and technology interfaces. The process is gradual and non-invasive. Admiral Hayes remained skeptical. And we're supposed to just trust that this gift doesn't contain hidden controls or influences? For the first time, the Sentinel's expression showed something like sadness. Your suspicion is understandable but unnecessary. The Shaper's final act was to ensure their successors would be truly free to choose their own path. The knowledge we offer comes without obligation. The energy window began to fluctuate slightly. Our connection time is limited during initial activation. The full reconnection will occur in stages over the coming months. I will return when the process reaches its next phase. Before anyone could ask further questions, the Sentinel added, "A warning. Others may detect this awakening. Not all who remember the Shapers wish to see their legacy continued. Prepare accordingly." With those ominous words, the energy window collapsed, leaving the chamber in sudden silence except for the humming of the still active Nexus spire. The council representatives immediately broke into urgent discussions among themselves. The Luminari approached Diane directly. "You do not seem as surprised as you should be," it observed quietly. "Your government suspected something of this nature, didn't they?" Diane chose her words carefully. "We had theories based on ancient texts and anomalous findings. Nothing concrete until now. The council will debate for months about how to respond," the Luminari said. "But you should know. My people were also a Shaper project, though designed for different purposes. We have waited millennia for another successor species to emerge." Diane studied the being's galaxy eyes. "Are you offering an alliance?" "I am suggesting that humanity prepare for both opportunity and conflict. The power balance that has existed for thousands of years is about to shift dramatically." The Luminari glanced toward the arguing council representatives. "Not everyone will welcome your ascension." As if to emphasize the point, Diane noticed Arbiter Cole engaged in an intense discussion with several military representatives from dominant council species. Their body language suggested alarm rather than diplomatic caution. Secretary Foster joined them, her expression grave. "Admiral Hayes is implementing security protocols and contacting Earth governments. This changes everything about our position in galactic politics." Nario. In 3 weeks after the Sentinel's appearance, Earth had transformed from a relatively isolated newcomer in galactic politics to the center of an interstellar diplomatic storm. The Galactic Council remained in emergency session, with factions forming along clear lines, those who welcomed the potential of a Shaper successor species and those who viewed humanity as a threat to the established order. Diane stood in the newly constructed Nexus Control Center beneath the Arctic facility, watching as scientists and engineers from both Earth and allied Council species worked to understand the massive influx of data still streaming from the activated spire. The room hummed with energy and purpose as holographic displays showed decoded schematics for technologies centuries beyond current understanding. "Progress report," she requested, approaching Dr. Rivera, who was coordinating the research teams. The scientist looked exhausted but exhilarated. "We've decoded approximately 8% of the database. Even that small fraction contains revolutionary advancements in energy production, medicine, and material science." "And the defense systems?" Diane asked quietly. Rivera glanced around before leading Diane to a secure terminal in a side chamber. "This is what we've extracted so far." The display showed schematics for planetary shield technology that could protect Earth from almost any known weapon in the Council arsenal. Alongside it were designs for vessels unlike any current spacecraft, ships that could manipulate spatial fields for both propulsion and defense. "How soon can we implement these?" Diane asked. "That's the remarkable part," Rivera replied. "The Nexus isn't just providing information, it's activating dormant systems buried throughout Earth's crust. We've detected energy signatures at 17 locations globally, all coming online automatically." A soft chime indicated an incoming communication. Admiral Hayes appeared on the screen, his expression tense. "Representative Morgan, we have a situation developing in orbit. The Council has split, and the military faction has dispatched a fleet to Earth under the pretext of security concerns. ETA 4 hours. How many ships?" 27 vessels, including 3 Dreadnought class. Secretary Foster is attempting diplomatic channels, but we should prepare for less friendly scenarios. Diane nodded. "I'll be up shortly." "Have the Luminari and Archivist representatives been informed?" "They're already working with our tactical teams. The Luminari especially has been surprisingly helpful with understanding certain defensive capabilities." The connection ended, and Diane turned back to Rivera. "Accelerate the shield system activation. Focus all resources on planetary defense for now." As Diane made her way to the surface facility, she felt that strange warmth again, spreading from her temples down her spine. Since the Sentinel's revelation about her genetic pattern, these sensations had been increasing in frequency and intensity. Sometimes they brought flashes of insight or understanding about the Shaper technology that she couldn't possibly have known. In the command center, Admiral Hayes was coordinating with military leaders globally. The large display showed the approaching council, fleet as well as the positions of the few Allied ships that had remained, in Earth orbit, mostly luminary and independent. Traders Secretary Foster was engaged in a tense conversation with Arbiter Cole via holographic link. "I cannot accept this violation of our sovereignty," she was saying. "Earth has made no aggressive moves that would justify such a military presence. The Council has determined that the activation of Shaper technology constitutes a potential threat to galactic stability." Cole responded. "The fleet's presence is merely precautionary while we assess the situation." Diane stepped into view of the transmission. "Arbiter, we both know this precaution is actually an attempted show of force. The Bravari and Morkelin delegations have been pushing for containment since the Sentinel's appearance." Cole's forearms moved in a gesture of diplomatic regret. "The Council must consider all perspectives. Some members have legitimate concerns about unregulated access to Shaper technology." The key word being unregulated, Diane noted. "This is about control, not security." Before Cole could respond, alarms sounded throughout the facility. A technician called out, "Energy surge detected in the Nexus chamber."
"Massive power spike!"
The holographic link with Cole dissolved as systems redirected power to essential functions. Diane rushed to the monitoring station where operators were tracking the unprecedented energy readings from below. "What's happening?" she demanded. "The Nexus is activating something new," a technician reported. "Energy patterns we haven't seen before, broadcasting globally and into orbit." The senior archivist glided into the command center, robes shifting in patterns of deep purple and gold. "It has begun. The full awakening sequence." On screens throughout the facility, reports flooded in from around the world. At each of the 17 locations Rivera had identified, massive structures were emerging from beneath the earth or sea. Towers of the same flowing metal as the Arctic ruins, rising to heights of hundreds of meters. As they reached their full extension, energy fields formed between them, creating a network that encircled the planet. "Planetary defense grid," the luminary explained, entering behind the archivist. "A standard Shaper protection measure for worlds of special importance." Admiral Hayes studied the tactical displays with a mixture of awe and concern. "Will it stop the approaching fleet?" "It will prevent hostile action," the luminary confirmed. "But more importantly, it will prevent them from interfering with what comes next." Diane turned to the alien. "What exactly is coming next?" Instead of answering, the luminary gestured to the main display where a new alert had appeared. The Council fleet had suddenly stopped its approach, holding position just beyond Mars' orbit. Simultaneously, long-range sensors detected a spatial distortion forming near Earth's moon, similar to the energy window that had appeared in the Nexus chamber but vastly larger. "Another visitor," the senior archivist said, softly. The distortion expanded until it formed a stable portal approximately 5 kilometers in diameter. From within emerged a vessel unlike any they had seen before, not metallic like Council ships, but seemingly composed of the same flowing, light-absorbing material as the Shaper ruins. It moved with impossible grace for its massive size, positioning itself between Earth and the Council fleet. Communication systems activated automatically as a transmission came through. The same resonant mental voice they had heard from Sentinel Eterna filled the command center. "Defenders of Earth, we have arrived as promised. The awakening has progressed more rapidly than anticipated due to external pressures." The main screen showed the Sentinel, now standing in what appeared to be the command center of the massive vessel. Behind it stood other figures of similar appearance but varying heights and features. "The Council fleet approaches with divided purpose," the Sentinel continued. "Some seek to contain what they fear, others to claim what they covet. Neither shall interfere with the transition." Secretary Foster stepped forward. "Sentinel Eterna, we welcome your arrival, but Earth must maintain its sovereignty. We cannot accept unilateral actions even from those who claim to be our benefactors." The Sentinel's expression showed approval. "Well said, leader. The Shapers did not create successors to command them, but to see if they would command themselves wisely. Your caution honors their vision." A new signal interrupted Arbiter Cole, now broadcasting from the lead Council vessel. "Sentinel vessel, this is Arbiter Cole of the Galactic Council. Your unannounced arrival constitutes a violation of Council space and protocols. The Council exists by shaper design, arbiter. The Sentinel replied calmly. Your authority has always been provisional, pending the emergence of successor species. That time has now arrived. Cole's posture stiffened. The Council represents 3,000 worlds and over 500 sentient species. We cannot allow a single planet to destabilize that order, regardless of its alleged heritage. Yet you bring weapons to enforce your will, the Sentinel observed. This is not the action of true governance, but of fear. Throughout this exchange, Diane felt the strange warmth intensifying, concentrating now in her hands and forehead. Looking down, she saw with shock that faint patterns of light had begun to trace themselves along her skin, following her veins in complex geometric designs. The luminary noticed immediately. The key-bearer sequence is activating, it said, an undercurrent of excitement in its voice. She can end this confrontation. Before Diane could ask what this meant, the Sentinel's attention focused directly on her through the transmission. Diane Morgan of Earth, your genetic pattern has fully synchronized with the Nexus network. You now have the authority to make a choice that will determine humanity's path forward. The command center fell silent as all eyes turned to Diane. The glowing patterns on her skin had become brighter, pulsing in rhythm with the Nexus energy readings. What choice? She asked, finding her voice despite the strange sensations coursing through her. Whether humanity will accept its role as shaper successors, the Sentinel explained, with all the responsibility and knowledge that entails, or whether your species wishes to continue its independent development, with the Nexus sealed until a future generation is prepared. Admiral Hayes moved to stand beside her. This decision affects all of humanity. It cannot rest on one,